Thank you so much for joining the session. It is Fintech Fintech Zona into the unknown, and I just wanted to take some time and kind of share my story and my experience. And at the end, would absolutely love any QA or anything that may any questions that anyone may have. And so I'll go ahead and get started. So today is actually Equal Latina Pay Day. I don't know if a lot of you know what that means, but in terms of what it means is that today, the 270th day of the year, out of 365 days, Latinas actually catch up, and they finally make the same amount that a male, a white male, non-Hispanic would make in a whole year. So it only takes 178 days to catch up. So that means that on a national average, for every dollar that a white non-Hispanic man earns, Latinas only earn 52 cents. And in terms of what it means for an overall, if you were to look at it from a 40-year career perspective, that's a lost wages of 1.2 million over that 40-year span. And every year, that's about $30,000 that we're leaving on the table. And every month, it's about 2.5 or $2,500 that we're leaving on the table. And just want to point out that less than or 3.2% of executive roles or executive leadership roles out in corporate America are held by women. And as of 22, only 0.4% of executive officers were actually Latina women. So those are some pretty staggering statistics, but definitely wanted to share those with everyone, just something to keep in mind. And wanted to talk about my own experience within my career trajectory. So we're going to start out with some pictures, and let me go ahead and share my screen. Going to share some pictures and just talk about sort of where I've been, how I've been, and how I got to where I am today. Some pictures of myself, my family. That's the black and white. Very cool. I thought it was very artsy back in high school when I graduated. And then the picture of my graduation from SMU with both my parents, and then just other really fun events and milestones that I've gotten to celebrate with friends and family, and some really neat experiences, like when I got to work on a economic summit where I was actually supporting the president at the time when I worked for the federal government. And so here's just a quick snapshot of where or how my career has spanned. I am 43, about to turn 42. And so I really wanted to say that just to provide a perspective for individuals out there that feel that maybe they're not exactly where they're supposed to be, or doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing. And so it's not, it does not happen overnight. It's something that has taken a long time to get to where I am today. But wanted to sort of just talk through what that experience is. And so, for example, I started my very first job at Target. I was a cashier. Was 16. It opened up down the street. I went down and literally applied for a job like 2 days before my 16th birthday to make sure that I had a job. And so worked as a cashier, dealt with money, and quickly got to move around because I managed to keep the register, my register line very low, and checked out customers pretty quickly. And then that sort of just kind of moved over to where I was then processing the deposits for all of the tellers within Target. And then based on that, I remember it was last week of high school, right before graduation, there was a bank that came out and was recruiting tellers. And so I said, I thought, I definitely can do that. I applied, and I was a job for a teller, which that got me through college. I worked through all 4 years of college at a bank as a cashier, and never did I think how that experience would sort of tie in down the road, even very much today that I'm in the fintech space. And got to go to Southern Methodist University here in Dallas. Did not get to go away for college, but was absolutely not going to miss out on that opportunity when I got to graduate school, and went on to attend American University in Washington, D.C. I wanted to go into the Foreign Service. I wanted to work for the State Department and do all the good things that diplomats and diplomacy bring to the world. And I did get a really amazing opportunity to actually intern with the State Department down in Santiago, Chile at their embassy. But then I realized through that internship that was not the right space or opportunity for me. And so I actually moved into the Treasury Department, and they were looking for interns, and it was 2003. And so there was still very much a lot of movement around trying to find funds and illicit money that was being used to fund, that had been used to fund terrorism. And the September 11th attacks. And so because I understood how money moved and how from big accounts and financial institutions, I was brought on as an intern at the Treasury Department. And then at the end of the internship, I was fortunate enough to get hired and did some really exciting work around those type of illicit money tracking and finding of that movement. Went into policy work, and then that policy work actually brought me into the financial services in the compliance space, where I have spent the majority or all of my career really is in compliance within those financial services areas. And fortunate enough to where I started in a Bank Secrecy Act area, which means making sure that bank accounts or financial products don't get abused for illicit purposes. And then eventually got moved into consumer practices, which is Experian. Experian, is a fintech, and I spent 5 years there, and there were it's one of the best cultures that I've ever gotten to work with. A lot of amazing and talented and really bright individuals. That place is great for driving your own career. You're very much in charge of it. And little did I know that Experian would propel me into the startup world, which is Array. I have been at Array, which is a small fintech startup in the consumer credit business. I've been here since April of 2022, so about a year and a half. It has been a whirlwind. Lots of learning. I get to really work and wear many different hats and have many different experiences. And it's been really challenging. It's helped me grow. It's helped me identify my blind spots, opportunities, and areas that I can keep pushing myself forward. I get to work with some really bright individuals. It is like nothing I've ever gotten to do before. I will say that startup space is not for everyone. It requires for you to be very agile, willing to pivot, whether it's pivot multiple times within that week, multiple times within a day, to ensure that you're working and getting to do whatever the priority is for that moment, or that given prioritization that's going on. I do want to say, though, that the timeline, what it doesn't show, at the end is sort of where I've arrived in that fintech space. It does not show the 3 times that I got passed up for promotion, where I thought I was very much prepared and ready, and really eager to take on those additional responsibilities and additional visibility amongst leadership. I can tell you that all those 3 times I remember clearly, and I was devastated every time, and would definitely look inward to understand what it was that, where it was that I fell or I fell short and was not ready for those promotions. Now with, 10, 15 years of time and that space where I've had the ability to look back and get that additional perspective, realizing that, there was perhaps aspects and components of where there was areas where perhaps I didn't have that exact experience, but I very much had the potential to take on some of those new challenges, and realizing that sometimes it is where the system doesn't quite work with where it is that you're wanting to go, either because of how you look, how you speak, or you don't look like others within the room. It also does not show the 2 times that I had to move to new cities to pursue those promotions, right? It does that timeline does not show that either, where it was time for me to pick up and leave and go and pursue the promotion that I wanted in order to be successful. It also does not demonstrate a point in my career where ultimately I did end up having to file an EEOC complaint because there was some issues that were identified as violation and discrimination. And so I do want to make sure that, you see that although there's this long trajectory and a progression in my career where I'm getting to work and doing at exciting places, there are those areas where it doesn't show kind of the ability to be tenacious, to come back, to pick yourself up and to keep pushing forward. And with that being said, I do want to share that in that time that I have been in my career, there are things that I have learned. And I will say that these are the biggest mistakes that I have made, that I have realized now looking back. There was many times in my career that I didn't think I was smart enough to be in the room, smart enough to get that big challenging project, smart enough for that next level in my career. Was often times where I didn't believe I was prepared enough. Again, looking at a job description, and if there's 10 things and I maybe only checked off for sure that I felt like I was an expert in 8 of those, feeling like I was not prepared enough, that I didn't recognize that the potential was there and that it was not going to be an issue to be able to fulfill those requirements, or also not thinking that I was ready enough, right? Perhaps it was a new sector. I have gotten the chance to move around in the financial services. So going from a retail bank or wealth management to money transmitters or auto finance, and understanding that those are very much core skills that can be translated across any type of financial service in the compliance space. Obviously, you have to adjust to the environment that you're in, whether it's a large financial institution or it's more in the private wealth, or maybe something that's a little bit riskier with money transmitters where that money moves very quickly. And the other thing was not understanding the power behind my story. Oftentimes, I very much wanted to make sure that I did not call attention to myself, that I did not in any way other myself in the room. So instead, I would kind of just mute myself. I would soften myself. I would make sure that I would show up in no way that was perceived maybe different, not belonging at the table or in the room. And I will say now that, there is so much power behind my story, my experiences, and my trajectory. And ensuring that gets put out there, that it is given a space, that it is shared and people hear it, because perhaps there is a component of it that can resonate. And the more that I can share my story and my trajectory and my experience, the more it becomes normalized, right? Whether it's with my friends or other younger women that I get to experience with. and make sure that that is really not a unique or in some way an extraordinary story or out of the blue, but instead it is a common, very reachable story and experience that anybody can have access to. And today I truly feel like I can show up as exactly as who I am, my own authentic self. I, like I said, I started my career in compliance or in financial services at the Treasury Department. I remember you wore black suits, gray suits, navy suits. I would never dare wear any type of color, either on my nails or on my lips. And again, wanting to make sure that I did not look any different than anybody else within the room. And now, as you can tell, I have no issue with wearing bright, colorful lipsticks, or bringing my own personal sense of identity into my experience, or my what I choose to show up as. And then one of the other things that I would say that I definitely have learned now that I wish I had known earlier was listening to your gut, ensuring that you trust that inner GPS and that intuition. So there were times in my career that I very much look inward to understand where my shortcomings or my failures were, never understanding that it was perhaps not just me. My gut would tell me that there was something not right, or something quite not feeling completely and sitting and settling well within the way that I was feeling, but ignoring it, right? Because I would again look to myself for that blame, or where that lack or those gaps were happening. And I've realized that if it is your spidey sense, your gut, that's telling you something is going on, there very much is something that is going on. And trust your gut, and make sure that you address the situation the way that it's supposed to be addressed, and change what it is that's not making you feel like it is, doing what it's supposed to be, how it's supposed to be feeling for you, feeling right for you. And so with that, in terms of the mistakes that I have made, this has have also brought me a lot of learnings, right? And things that I have come to realize and now understand and truly appreciate. And so one of the biggest things that it still continues to kind of surprise me in ways that I see it creep up in my experience is that you very much bring your childhood into your adulthood. And that is in, every aspect of your adulthood, whether it's your relationship with money, and that scarcity mentality where, maybe you grew up in an environment where there was some insecurity in terms of, finances, ensuring that there was enough for, back to school shopping and backpacks and books, or any other type of scarcity mentality, or perhaps your relationship with food, or your relationship with others, your relationship with your partners, that very much creeps in. But it does not all to say that it is bad. It is, there's a lot of positive things that you bring into your adulthood. But if it's not serving you, it does not need to come with you to your adulthood. One of the great things from my childhood was learning early on the importance of that relationship with my sisters, that network of that family support system that I'm fortunate enough to have and be able to lean on when I need it, whether it's, that I am on a work trip and there is a last minute need to pick up someone from school or get them to whatever school activity. That family support system and network is something that I am extremely grateful and appreciate now as an adult. And then in terms of the birthright, everyone's birthright, to take up space and to show up exactly how you are and who you are, and bring yourself into those spaces where perhaps it may not feel completely familiar. There may not be others that look like you or that sound like you, but it is very much your birthright to be in that space and to take up that space and to show up exactly the way and who you are, regardless of either being the only one or one of few, but understanding that even it does not matter what it is that you look like or what you sound like, you very much belong in that space, and are allowed to receive those gifts, the rewards for your hard work, whatever that looks like. And then really learning how to advocate for yourself, using your voice. And this kind of goes back to trusting your gut and that inner GPS. Use your voice. If you do not feel that you are being listened to, if you don't feel like you are being acknowledged, if you feel like you're being ignored and you're feeling dismissed, then more than likely you are feeling dismissed. And use your voice. And it doesn't mean that we can't have uncomfortable conversations. You can absolutely have an uncomfortable conversation and come back from it and move forward and move in a way that's much more productive and not be stuck in that uncomfortable sort of unspoken space. And then that pedigree, SAT scores, your GPA, the college that you attended, a law degree, those are all great measures of success. Those are great measures of accomplishments, but those are not direct measures of intelligence, meaning that perhaps, you didn't attend the number one college in the nation or the number one business program or top school in the MBA rankings, but it does not mean that you are any less intelligent or any less competent or capable than an individual that may. Just because an individual may have a law degree from a top law school, it does not mean that they are more qualified, more intelligent, and more prepared than you are, or even that they're more willing to work harder or as hard as what it would take for you to be successful and achieve what it is that you're trying to achieve. And then the other that really resonates with me is that regret, fear, and shame are thieves. What I mean by that is if you are constantly looking for backwards and reanalyzing and overanalyzing and regretting perhaps some of the past mistakes or lessons that you learned or things that you chose not to do, there is no value. There is nothing that comes from it. It will literally rob you from any joy in the future or second guesses. Take them as lessons. Take them as a step in the trajectory of your career, of your life. Allow that to propel you forward. And fear, not to say that I have no fear, but fear can be paralyzing. It can stop you in your tracks, and it could absolutely mean that you will not be going forward and moving forward to where you're supposed to be going forward. And shame. I believe that, often we have shame that stops us from asking for help, that stops us from asking a question when we don't understand that. And that absolutely does not do or serve a purpose for yourself. So I would say that these are absolutely the lessons that I have learned in a way from my experience. And I did want to just kind of talk a little bit about my experience in the startup world or in the fintech world. And because one thing that I do want to acknowledge is that often, at least it was my experience, that I did not have, someone that I could directly go to, either a parent, an aunt or uncle, an older sibling that had navigated corporate America or has navigated the startup world or has navigated, a career trajectory. And that is huge. Those are sort of like hidden curriculums. That's part of that network that is inherent to some, and they don't see the value of it. But when you don't have access to it, when you don't have a parent that can guide you, that can talk you through, how you go about selecting the right 401k plan for you or the right insurance plan for you, it's tough. It's a very hard, when you don't have someone that can provide that type of guidance and share that type of knowledge with you. And so from a startup environment, these are some of the things that if you're thinking about going into a startup, or you're thinking about going into, whether it's like a new tech organization or a fintech organization, I would say that here are some of the things that you definitely want to think about to make sure that you're putting yourself, or you're going to step into the right situation. Do your research. Make sure that you understand who the founders are, who the executive leadership team is, who the investors are. So is it a VC firm that's doing the funding, or is it individual investors that are part of those that are funding the startup? And then who is the board of directors? Understand, is it someone that was previously in the space and is somehow advising the startup? But make sure that you understand their background and how they came into and involved with this particular startup. And then, like I said, the startup world is a wild, wild ride. And the glitz and glam of startup do wear off quite quickly. And so I would want to make sure that you have an understanding of how that organization's mission aligned with your values. So making sure that you're able to attach yourself to either what the organization is trying to achieve or deliver, and not just have it be about, saying that you're a part of a startup. And then understanding if there's any reputational risk from the startup. So was there perhaps some misses with the founder at a different organization? Are there any other type of reputational risks that perhaps the startup is in sort of a more questionable type area or industry? And then how early on is the startup in the journey? So that kind of goes into the next question about funding. So is the organization at the seed stage where they're kind of, out there doing some beta testing with product, building the product, designing the platform? Or is it further downstream with the funding where they've made it through multiple rounds of funding? And so someone who is at a seed stage very much is much more early on in the process than someone in, say, like a Series B or a Series C, or maybe perhaps they're getting ready to do some type of IPO offering. But these are some questions to start out with as you're looking to get involved, and really kind of give you an understanding of what it is that you need to be aware of and what you need to be looking for when you're thinking about making the jump into a startup environment. And so I'm going to go out and see if there are any questions or discussion that is out there for anyone who may have some questions for me. So it looks like there's a question about, how do you access the startup world? I happen to honestly get a cold message on LinkedIn where they saw that my profile aligned with what the particular client that they were looking for. And it was literally based off of my LinkedIn profile and responding to that inquiry and connecting with a recruiter, and then talking about the opportunity. And then it just kind of progressed there, where I did my research and I met with the CEO and the hiring manager, and then understood where the organization was and what it was that we're looking for, and how it aligned where I was within my career. But that is it. And so One other question that someone has popped in is looking back, what is it that I was most proud of, or one of the moments that I'm most proud of in my career? And I will say, looking back now, and I can talk about this, it's really taking some of the risks that I have taken, and even just into this new organization I'm with. Previously at the organization I was with, and I've said it's a great environment, and it was a very safe. I knew where I was going, where your trajectory was taking me, and I decided to leave it and go on and experience this new startup, this new environment, and I do feel like it took some guts. I'm still learning, but like I say, I have gotten to work with a lot of amazing, talented individuals. And truly do believe in what the organization is trying to do in the consumer credit data space. But I definitely want to thank you for joining today. Please connect with me on LinkedIn, Yesenia Mendez, and thank you so much for joining.